On the line with more on this, want to bring in conservative columnist Gina Loudon. Gina, good to see you. You have some strong opinions about this proposed $1.1 trillion spending bill.
I just cannot even believe we're talking about spending this kind of money right now. And we wonder why we're getting these non-traditional candidates that are rising to the top when voters elected this Republican majority to cut spending. Why are we even having this conversation?
Well, we spoke with Republican presidential candidate Senator John McCain yesterday, asking him about Donald Trump and about spending. And we want to get your take on that as well. But let me bring Dick Grasso into the conversation here. Dick, when you're talking about these kinds of numbers, it riles people up because of the excessive spending that we've seen in this country.
You know, I think the the rise of Donald and some of the so-called outsider candidates defines the anger of the American people. This government has failed, whether it be the Republican side of the aisle or the Democrat side of the aisle, and certainly the White House. They have delivered zero for the American people, and we're fed up. You know, we've got a deficit, a budget deficit, that's just going to continue to grow. We've got, and people don't like to talk about this, they talk about, you know, the current deficit at the national level. If you were to take all of the unfunded pension liabilities in this country, it's $100 trillion. You know, God love our first responders.
Yeah.
Okay, but there are fire and policing pension programs that are going to go broke because of what the incumbents are doing these days.
Gina, you want to add to that? What would you rather see this bill look like?
I'm sorry, you know, I'd like to see it not be 3,000 pages. Can we just start there? Can we just encapsulate when we've doubled the debt under this president, do we really need to go then and increase spending? And does it need to take 3,000 pages to explain it? And then again, back to the point that we've been talking about the whole show, you know, it's no wonder that people want a plain-spoken, a straight-spoken person. These politicians are coronating Donald Trump right now.
Yeah, you're right.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, Dick, when you look at the detail, forget the breadth and the trillions. I mean, if you don't realize this is ridiculous, I mean, we're probably not even on the same wavelength. But the details. Putin's getting paid by this bag of goodies.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, and
That's
Senator
true.
McCain brought that out yesterday.
He's very upset by that.
We're going to be paying the Russians for rocket, if you will, technology. This is just stupidity at a level we've never experienced in the country.
And they snuck that in, apparently, Senators Durbin and Shelby. That's also what he was upset about, because it just, they had already agreed on something, and then they put that provision in there.
I think that's like un-American.
Well, I'll tell you what's really un-American was that they were going to hold hostage the Zadroga provisions, which is health care for our first responders on 9/11, to the export of natural gas. I mean, anyone in their right mind in the Congress, either side of the aisle, okay, who remembers what happened on 9/11, how could you possibly threaten not to provide health care to those people who are today getting sick and dying as a result of saving 50,000 lives?
Yeah, and also go forward with the Russian rocket ship spending.
But we have no way of sending our own astronauts into space at this point. It's only on Russian rockets. Like when an American astronaut goes into space, into the space station, I mean that was a horse that left the barn years ago, and that we didn't do anything about it.
I think the litmus test for this provision is that all of the first people we send into space are members of the House and Senate.
I want to bring up one thing, though. Look at how low the rates are that the government can borrow at. That is the most critical point in terms of reducing spending. Nobody is going to do a doggone thing about spending until it costs so much to borrow. But again, the economy's in such bad condition that we can still borrow it at close to 2% a year over 10 years.
Our elected officials don't want to tell the truth about how bad the economy is. You know, you talk about the last 12 or 24 months of job creation. Well, when you create a job at $12 an hour that replaces a job on the assembly line in automobile plants that used to pay $35 an hour, you're not doing this economy any good. You know, they're not talking about that. They're not talking about about the millions of people who have dropped out.
Yeah.
They're just not part of the workforce any longer.
What's your take, Gina, on the field? I mean, I know that this is why Donald Trump is resonating.
Yeah.
But you've also got Ted Cruz rising in the polls. National security, obviously, the #1 issue now.
Well, and Ted Cruz, don't forget, has been the most rebellious of the more traditional candidates in the race. And so he's been the one who's pushed back against this sort of ridiculous spending, Maria. And that's the reason, another reason why he's resonating with voters. It's so insulting to me that this is right before Christmas, like Merry Christmas, taxpayers, right before Christmas, and that they think, I guess we're not going to notice that business is going on as usual. But what I think the big surprise is going to be to them is when the voters say back to them that, we're tired of this business as usual, and they're fired.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the sentiment of the American people on both sides of the aisle, I think, right now.
Dick, Chris Christie really came across well in that last debate, and I know that you have supported him in the past. You're supporting him.
I continue to support him. I think one of the things that we've got to remember, and as strong as some of the Republican candidates are, and their ability to say no, 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 all right, to govern, you have to bring people across the aisle together. It's the American people. It's not the Democrats and the Republicans. And I think Chris, in a blue state, having been elected twice, I mean, Democrats in New Jersey hate it when I say this, but he knows how to bring people across the aisle.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to have going forward.
People don't want the divisiveness anymore.
Well, and that's one area where I would push back on this idea that this budget deal is business as usual. They actually negotiated and made a deal. I mean, Gohmert is saying they negotiated with Democrats. Well, yeah, that's how democracy works. And Democrats negotiated with Republicans.
Right.
It's the people, as John said, when the people in the center say, look, I don't like everything you're saying, you don't like everything I'm saying, but we're actually going to make a deal, that actually is going to move us forward, and that's going to be crucial.
Well, that's the point. On monetary and fiscal policy, there's not a big difference between Republicans and Democrats. There wasn't. And that's the point. They'll all spend. That's what they think they need to do. They'll all ease. That's
well,
what
they do need to do that because people think global, but they act local. And it's like, if I don't get mine, if some constituent doesn't get something, they don't vote, they don't reelect their local representatives.
You look at the standings, the if you will, the sentiment of the American people about the Congress, lowest it's ever been. Yet you ask anyone, how's your congressman doing? Fabulous.
Right.
Okay? So go back to your point a moment ago. Roberto Goizueta said it 25 years ago. Think global, act local.
Yeah. Gina, good to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Good to be with you. Thanks so much.
We'll see you soon. Gina Loudon there. Make sure you tune in on Thursday, January 14th for the second Fox Business